It's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for 36 million and we got people starving in the streets. There's no way Michael Jackson should have, or whoever Jackson, should have a million thousand druple $1 billion and then there's people starving. There's no way that these people should own planes and their people don't have houses, apartments, shacks, drawers, pants. But even if you earned it, you still owe. Because look at me, I don't have that mega money, but I feel guilty walking by somebody. I got to give them some mail. And if I know I got $3,000 in my pocket, I feel like it's wrong to give that person a quarter or a dollar. It's wrong. So since it's not about if you good or you bad, we know that because he don't got don't mean he was bad. Or don't mean he's a criminal, or don't mean he's crazy or a drug addict, or none of that. It just means he don't got. I mean, can you imagine somebody having $32 million? 32. $32 million. And this person has nothing. And you can sleep. You can still go to the movies about, and then these are the type of people that get humanitarian awards. How can they be humanitarians? By the fact that they millionaires and there's so many poor people shows how unhumane they are. I think there's a way to pay these people. I think there is a way. It just takes to be revolutionary. I think that if we just said, okay, I got an idea. No more porno buildings, you know what I'm saying? Let's build houses. Or no more polo games. Let's build houses for poor people. You know what I'm saying? Or look, okay, I know you're rich. I know you got $40 billion, but can you just keep it to one house? You only need one house. And if you only got 2 kids, can you just keep it to 2 rooms? I mean, why have 52 rooms and you know there's somebody with no room? It just don't make sense to me.
And to this present day, it still doesn't make sense to me, Professor. I mean, like, these are the same issues that we are talking about some 30 years later that has been going on for quite some time. And I don't hear any artists really talking like this. So it's aged like wine, but it's like a poisonous wine that we still have to even drink it. You know, like we shouldn't be talking about this anymore, but we are still in the same boat, and arguably it's gotten worse.
Yeah, I mean, not just arguably, it is scientifically measurably worse, right? And we have a greater chasm between the rich and poor than we've had at any point since the Great Depression. And people were saying this 10 years ago. People were saying this 15 years ago, and this has gotten more acute over time. And so, what is interesting is that in this last election, half of Americans voted for someone who wants to facilitate that chasm getting even wider. But not just that the chasm is getting wider between the ultra wealthy and everyone else, but the goods and services. To Tupac's point, that the way in which we take care of the people who have very little, that is actually becoming harder, right?
Hmm.
And so when we think about access to healthcare, access to education, access to when you think about infrastructure, clean air, soil, and water, all these sorts of basic things that we'd expect, an industrialized, civilized society to provide for its citizens, that these things are becoming more constricted. And just in the last 6 months, I mean, if anyone's paying any attention to what scientists have said about at the Centers for Disease Control about public health, and these are people who have gone to college, gone to universities, have gotten MDs and PhDs, and for a living, they follow science. And they're saying by the thousands that we are wrong-headed. 4,000 people signing a petition saying that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., should resign. And it's mind-boggling that we've gotten to a point when a major state like Florida is saying that
Mm.
although science has shown that we've saved not just hundreds or thousands, but millions of lives from polio and mumps and all sorts of other
Measles.
measles, that we now are going to retreat from what has been a success story, that Americans can laud themselves on our public health care system, but that we cannot do that any longer with this sort of trend. So I think that so much of what Tupac was saying 30 years ago, that so much of it is, I think, still going on, but more importantly, much more acute than what we had before. And Tupac has, as we all know, a mother. She was revolutionary. She was a Black Panther. She had empathy for poor people. She had empathy for people who were exploited, empathy for people who were oppressed. And so, the organization, her whole raison, her reason for living was to push back against the boundaries of oppression and exploitation. and hatred. And so the Black Panther Party's very missions, that this is something that Tupac had as a kid that he was raised with. Now it's fascinating to see him be so passionate about that as a man, as a rapper, and it's beautiful to see, even as it might be sort of, very unclear, like how it might be realized. He's very empathetic, and that's a beautiful thing. Empathy is a very beautiful thing. I love to see that clip. I was smiling as I watched it because, I think about it, Tupac is he's born a year or 2 years after me, so we're very close in age. And I think about him as a 20 some odd year old being that passionate about people's well being. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Very much so. I believe Jeff Pearlman is going to have a book out about Tupac that he's been working on for like 4 or 5 years, I want to say. So I'm looking forward to that. When he says a revolutionary act, can you unpack that? What does he mean by that? What do you think he means by that?
Yeah, the term revolution is, tossed around a lot. It can mean different things to different people. As a college student, the definition that I was taught was that it's fundamental systemic change. And so it's not just that it is, uh, like say, for example, black faces in high places. That was not the ambition for the Black Panther Party or people who were self-defined revolutionaries in the late 1960s or early 1970s, but that there was a radical restructuring of society in so many different ways, particularly the economic. And when we say political, all things are politics. So the political structure would facilitate changes for in economic ways. So healthcare, and these are basic human necessities, right? Like housing, healthcare, education, war. So the end of war, the end of imperialism, and then there are other cultural, social things. You think about racism and racial animus. I mean, those things are harder, I think. But I tend to be someone to believe that structural change can lead to these sorts of cultural disruptions. And we see that time again all around the world, but including in the United States. But whether we're talking about Germany or we're talking about wars between countries, that you could have people who are the political landscape could dictate their behavior, but once that political landscape changes, their behavior and their cultural values will change significantly. So an example could be the United States, literally at war with Japan and Germany, and dropping bombs on civilians in both countries and killing hundreds of thousands of German and Japanese men, women, and children. But literally, in 5 years later, people are like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Germany and have a vacation. I'm gonna be up in Munich chilling. I got a fellowship to go do research in University of Berlin. I'm learning German." And you're hanging out, and people have lost their hatred for Germans or Japanese in a short period of time. And even in the United States, we have like hardcore, vicious, uncivilized, barbaric racists who will throw acid in the pools if there were black children in there, and blow up a school or a restaurant because black people are being served. And literally within 5 years, they're in a Shoney's or a Walgreens, standing in line next to a black person chilling, right? Their blood pressure is not high. They go to a gym and a black person's there, and they're not trying to blow the place up. And so people get used to things when the political circumstances can change. And I think that we lose sight of how malleable human beings are. So I think that when we think about revolution, I would argue that certainly for the Black Panther Party and self-defined revolutionaries of this period from the late 60s and early 70s, what historians call the long 60s, that many of them thought of structural change. But structural change would bring about that sort of social cultural changes that we also hope to see.